Hi, everyone. Welcome to what will be part 9 of my series with an LED crystal ball from the Dollar Tree exposing Katie Joy's lies and lawsuits one by one. How are all of you? I hope you're doing great. Thank you for listening and all of the feedback you're giving me and all of that good stuff. I'm still not caught up with my comments from me taking that vacation. I'm telling you, it takes me a while to get caught up, but I did get caught up in my email. So, today was horribly hot. Okay? Some people enjoy the heat. As those of you who have been around for a while know, the heat and me do not get along. Growing up, it was just always thought to be, just really terrible asthma, especially in the summer. Um, I'm 51, so back then, we didn't know a lot about things. But what it truly is, of course, asthma on top of it. But I was going into anaphylactic shock. My body cannot do heat, and if you combine heat and ragweed in the same 24 hours, my body goes into anaphylaxis unless I'm very well medicated. So I need to take my allergy meds 4 times a day during these times, and the heat index was up to 128 here. We're in some weird heat bubble. So it was so hot and humid that I had to use the windshield wipers every so often because everything would get fogged up. It was just craziness. I went to the doctor as I told you guys I would. I'll tell you guys about that because I'm gonna do a little episode then on the importance of mammograms and what they're like and all that good stuff. Because I'm such a good person and I did my mammogram and I want everybody to do theirs too. Don't be afraid. They've came so far. It's not like it used to be. It's not painful per se. It's just uncomfortable. And after that, I went over to the courthouse and checked to see if anything was new. And there is something new. Yes, indeed, my friends. And I went ahead and I also printed off the last set of things that were filed. And again, it's duplicates because they keep refiling other things. And I wanted to be sure that it wasn't that certain things were not included or anything like that. So I just spent I spent about an hour and a half at the courthouse, and then no, not an hour and a half. I don't know, maybe a half hour at the courthouse, and just printed off everything because the courthouse was closing. I forgot they closed at 4:30, and then so I just printed off everything I could quickly, and then just spent about an hour and a half or so, just going through and making sure that everything that I got is a duplicate, and that there wasn't anything added anywhere in the paperwork. I think that when we see that something has happened and then we don't see the corresponding documents, I think that's because they probably have to have a special review of what needs to be protected for the protective order, and then what can be put in there for the public to see. What I found out, well, hold on, I have to tell you the rest of my ventures and then I'll get on this. I saw a sign that said sweet corn, and I'm like, oh yes, because I had so much good corn at the Wisconsin State Fair that I've just been craving it. And so I went down this road, and I did a little film of it coming back so you can see how beautiful it is, as it's another back road to the courthouse. It's just beautiful. Found myself the sweet corn, and it's just this little trailer that the farmer puts at the edge of, must be, where his acreage is, and just a little box where you put the money and you just grab the corn from the inside of the trailer. And where do you find that in today's world? I remember it was like that in Leavenworth, in for apples, and there would be fruit stands where you would go in and just get your own stuff and then just put the money in the lockbox. I just haven't seen that forever, so I got a kick out of that. And then when I went to Walmart, which nobody should do, and the heat, oh my God. Guess what? Guess what, folks? It's the time where, yep, they decided that they have maybe a little too much crayons or whatever the case may be, but for 24 they're marked down to 50 cents. So I splurged on myself and actually bought the thing of 24 crayons instead of just huffing it and putting it down. So I mean, the smell of fresh crayons, honestly, they're so beautiful, and it just reminds me of when things were more simple, and back when cereal tasted good. It probably had all the stuff we can't have anymore. But remember, Trix was just so freaking good back then. 1976-ish, 77. Good cereal, kindergarten, fresh crayons, fall leaves, pumpkins. Crayons just bring me back to that nostalgic place. So if you need crayons, they're the 50 cents for 24. I love pens and Sharpies and everything else, and they just have such good stuff this time of year. But I have to walk away from them because I don't need any more. So while I'll be talking to you, I'm doing my the True Honey tea that I got at the fair, Peach Rubio in my Starbucks thing, and my cucumber water. I did a short. I made my favorite summer salad that's cold rice, cucumber, tomato, and I actually did put a little bit of the green pepper in it too. And this time I did with garlic salt. It really added a good taste to it with rice vinegar. So that's up in a short. If you haven't seen that, definitely check that out. It's a great salad because you make it one day, and make enough that you can just kind of munch on it throughout the rest of the week. If it gets a little bit dried out, just add a little bit more rice vinegar. And if you don't have rice vinegar, you can get creative and put Italian dressing on it. Just be really, really sparing with it. But it's just a good way to not, the summer it gets so frustrating because you don't want to turn the oven on. But at the end of the day, when it cools down, you're like, oh, I haven't eaten all day and I'm hungry. So it's just nice to have a good summer salad. So check that out in my shorts, and not my shorts, but, the short films, you bunch of perverts. Not telling you to look at my shorts, but you know what I mean. And I've got a Gatorade because I got to keep myself hydrated. Okay? So without further ado, we will go into the Katie Joy shit show, if we will. So what I found out is, okay, so this is new. Basically, when I narrated before where we had where it said proposed order, it said, it basically, when they know that something's upcoming or something's been scheduled, they do basically a template saying this happened, blah, 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 but it's not signed, and it's missing what actually happened. Now, this order, which should now not have the word proposed, it should be an actual order, because this is what the summation of what happened that day is. And it says by judge of the district court. Now, nothing really happened that day, as I said. I'm going to assume that when they had their little chat that was private, they talked about this or something, because there's more in here than what actually happened. So I'm kind of trying to figure out why that is. I'm going to read that, and then I did find this. So what it says here, so this is a new notice of filing of order, and it is here that an order was filed on the 7th. Now remember, the hearing that I went to and I told you guys all about was on the 1st of August. So this is absolutely new. And it is dated August 9th. And it says here, you are notified that an order was filed on August 7th, 2023. This is a file copy, and it's notice of the filing of order. And it says 7M Films, Robert Shin, Miranda Derrick, James Derrick versus Catherine Mansky Paulson, a.k.a. Katie Joy Without a Crystal Ball, LLC. You are notified that an order was filed on August 7th, 2023. It doesn't say much. It just says that an order was filed. Okay. It says CC Amber Joy and Graham Mather Martin. Okay. It says a true and correct copy of this notice has been served pursuant Minnesota Rules of Civil Procedure, Rule 77.04. Not earth-shattering information, but it's something interesting. It's something new. On Reddit, people were joking around because of something that Katie said that made them think that maybe she is no longer with or planning to get rid of or whatever. They were saying that maybe her and Toad are getting a divorce. And they said, oh no, the thread basically went on to say, no, somebody would find it if it was filed. And then they're like, oh, I wonder if it got a life of its own in a Reddit thread. So while I was there, I checked everything 5 ways from sideways, and there has not been any divorce filed as of yet. I don't know how the man does it, but what are his options? He's not the kind of man that's a provider, really. I mean, he's a Peter Pan. He is a boy. He wanted to be in a band, and basically that's it. Failure to launch. I mean, he didn't really go and say, I'm going to step up and do this. And then who knows about her, but I mean, she took it upon herself to be the breadwinner, and as it's been said, he said that, she's the goose who laid the golden egg, I guess. I mean, they live off of her lies. If she doesn't have these lies, they don't have jobs. Her lies are their business. I think that's sad. It's really sad, because if the public wasn't subscribing and encouraging it, the lies wouldn't go anywhere. You know what I mean? So it's like, until people realize that she's not telling the truth, then she gets away with it. No different than the Inquirer. She is a one-woman Inquirer. And that's about it. I mean, she sits there and pontificates and acts like she has sources, and these sources have not came out and said, yeah, I'm her source. No one's slithered out of her hole. So, oh man, that's probably gonna be clipped. Oh my god. Yeah, but you know what? Somebody has to say it. I mean, honestly, does she just pull sources out of her butt? I mean, how on earth does she get away with this? I don't know. I don't know. Let me take a sip of tea while I'm spilling that tea, because that was a big tea spill. Oh, my tea has gone lukewarm. Nothing worse than that. It's not cold and it's not hot. It's lukewarm. Ha. Disappointment, sip by sip. So, I went through and verified that when I did the last thing here and found all 21 pages or so, or 26 pages of emails from both parties, I went ahead and made sure that nothing was added to that, and I did find that there were things added. So if we go here to the last page, It looks like this is definitely where we have our, just a second here. Hey, honey, I'm doing a live. Okay. And I just want to remind you not to have your music on because I can't have that. Roger that. Sorry. All good. So here they have, so the hearing that was held in person. So this is where the last part that we saw. So the 8-1 says the motion hearing. Okay, we know that that happened. And it was the motion to compel, discovery motions. And then it says result held on the record. Okay. And then it says hearing held in person. And then it says order other on 8-7, index 90, discovery deadline extended. So something happened post-hearing, and that's maybe where we see that order. And maybe that's information that is under the protective order. We see here 8-10 has something that was canceled, and it says order to show cause hearing at 1:30 assigned an error. Okay, so that wasn't even supposed to ever be there, but it's there just because. Now look at this. 10-3-23, that's where we've got the phone conference only because, you know, we don't want to make everybody go and deal with the traffic and everything else. I don't know why they do that. I like a lot of things post pandemic, if you will, the way that a lot of things are. And I mean, obviously it's very, very convenient for them, but I don't think that anything is getting done by these phone hearings. I think that when they first saw each other in person, a lot more got done than has been done in 2 years. So going back to the phone and whatnot is just going to cause more and more motions and motions upon motions and motions about the other motions and motions upon those. They got some things done when they went face to face. And I wonder how many other cases are being drawn out like that. Dumb Betty in her lawsuit, even though she was also cocky and wanting to drag everybody else in front of a judge, now she is requesting that the hearings are by phone. And it's so funny because if you guys haven't seen everybody cover this, it is coming down to Betty says it's not fair that I'm the only one being sued because my friends were saying the same things I was. So until they're added to this, then I don't think it should go forward. And it's like, oh, thanks, jackass. And I think that maybe JLR had a crystal ball and saw this was what was coming. And that's why he started going around sending cease and desists, because for anybody who said that he was affiliated with Butthole Betty. Oh, anyway, everybody wants to be on the phone. It's like, no. Go to the courthouse. You've started something. There's a situation. Go to the courthouse. Put your suits on. Get in there and do some work. That's what needs to be done. So it looks here like there was more paid on both sides. 7/19, we know that something happened on 7/19, but we really don't understand everything that was. We can see here that there was another payment, and that was done by Katie. And so she's up to her running total for court costs, it looks like, alone and e-payments, blah, 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 blah. Every time something is filed, there's a fee. I can't even imagine. I don't know how she has this kind of money. But then the same thing goes to the other side, because then 7M has the same thing, so it goes through the attorney, which she gets the money from 7M, just like the attorney for Katie Joy gets the money through Katie. But they're both just paying. And in the end, if and when she has to pay up, she's going to be paying all of 7M's fees and legal fees and the settlement. Because in my crystal ball, I don't think it looks good for Katie Joy. I don't know why she's not freaking out. I think I'm freaking out more than her, but it is what it is. So then we've just got more proof of the 719 payments from 7M. So there's more there. So this big document going back and forth of the Register of Actions is probably more like 28 pages now. And the Register of Actions. So I'm just going to keep updating that. And like I say, I just keep making sure that everything is the same. Making sure that something isn't added to something that was filed. It's so confusing because you see the dates and then you see when they were filed, and it's a mess. It's a real mess. It's a real mess, Katie Joy. All right, just took another sip of disappointment. And then I have here, okay, that's there. Now, what that is, okay, so that's the Register of Actions. I'm going to put that back. Actually put it right here in case we need it. So we definitely know that 10/3 is the date for the hearing. And then, okay, so that goes here. This is that proposed order. And like I said, we can glean a lot in it with the interrogatories that they refer to and the depositions. And I think that before we go straight into 9 in that, the proposed order should be read. And then the other thing I wanted to show you guys that I saw when I was gleaning through here is definitely what's going to come out here is that they know that it says in here, defendant social media presence. It says defendant Katie Joy runs and uses various social media usernames on various platforms, including but not limited to. And that's where they have here. Let me see. They have Without a Crystal Ball on Instagram, and then she's got Cultsy Yuck on Instagram. And then I saw this, and I'm like, my God, she's bold, because she has a freaking Instagram called Exposing 7M. Like, if you weren't asking for a lol suit, that'd sure get you one. And then she's got Without a Crystal Ball on YouTube, Without a Crystal Ball on Facebook. And then she's got WOACB Official on Twitter. And then she's got Katie Joy WOACB on Twitter. And then she's got Without a Crystal Ball on TikTok. Now, we know that she has many more usernames and she trolls. So I think that this is a small list, but it's interesting how they know that. They're, like I say, they've really got a good pulse on her this time. And so, without further ado, let's see here. This one here says, the above entitled matter came before the undersigned Honorable Judge of the District Court on August 1 at the Wright County Courthouse. Amber J. Stavig appeared on behalf of the plaintiffs. Jennifer Moore appeared on behalf of the defendants. Based upon all of the files, records, arguments of counsel, and the parties and proceedings herein, the court makes the following. Okay, so this is where what the court decided, which may be that order that was entered. Because what it says here is it says findings of fact, conclusions of law, and order for judgment. It says on April, look at this. I'm telling you, does anybody proofread anything anymore? Look at how this says right here. On April, May 11th. Okay, which one is it? April or May? Oh my God. And this is like supposed to be the judge that wrote that. So obviously the judge is look, here I'm saying that and then I can't even get that to rest there. I cannot believe this. See that? I'm trying to get a pen. Look at this where it says on April, May 11th. What is that, a new month? April, May? I can't believe that. Oh. Hey, of all things, you would think that legal documents would be without error. How many errors am I finding? And on both sides and the judge. What in the heck? Is proofreading and proper grammar just lost in today's world? These young whippersnappers. It says, on April, May 11th, 2023, defendants were served with plaintiff's first set of interrogatories, request for production of documents, and request for admissions. On June 12th, 2023, defendants served their answers to plaintiff's first set of interrogatories. Okay, so that was going on. Well, she's just sitting there acting like nothing's going on and oh, the other sides just aren't answering each other and there's a few emails back and forth. Oh, no. There's been interrogatories and depositions and orders, and I would be a nervous wreck. I would be absolutely out of my freaking tree if this was happening to me. But, and maybe her self-medication keeps that from happening. I mean, it's no secret that she doesn't look right. I don't know. I mean, it's better be careful or I'm going to get one of these myself. But you know what I mean. On July 7th, 2023, plaintiffs served defendants with a letter outlining their discovery deficiencies. Okay. Number 4 here says, pursuant to the Minnesota Rules of Civil Procedure 33, 34, and 36, defendants are required to participate in discovery relevant to the lawsuit at hand. Defendants have failed to respond to relevant discovery and disclose information relevant to this lawsuit. The court finds defendants have failed to properly... Look at that. They left out a word. Check this out. The court finds defendants have failed to respond properly. Oh, wait, okay. That may be okay. The court finds defendants have failed to respond properly to plaintiff's discovery pursuant to Minnesota Rules of Civil Practice 33, 34, and 36. All right, that's fine. Plaintiff's motion to compel discovery is hereby granted. Pursuant to Minnesota Rules of Civil Procedure 37.01d, cost, disbursements, and attorney's fees associated with the plaintiff's reasonable expenses incurred in making their motion to compel be granted, and that plaintiffs shall submit an affidavit. It should be an, not and. Plaintiffs shall submit and affidavit of its costs to the court within 14 days for its costs. Ugh. So that should be an. Let's see here. So we're gonna fix that, and we're gonna go over here, and we're gonna be like, okay, which one is that? So we need to fix that. We need to put here. We need to put an instead of and. Plaintiff shall submit an affidavit of its costs to the court within 14 days for its costs. That's actually very repetitive. Anywho, this says something. It's a bunch of going back and forth. It says you've got to do something. And what it is, I'm not yet sure. And what they decided, I'm not yet sure. But it was supposed to be that the hearing was the big showdown. And a lot of people expected a lot. A lot of people expected that, oh, okay, then her son is going to get proper care, and she's going to be exposed for what she is, and people are going to show that she's not a journalist, and no, that's not going to happen until and unless this goes to a trial, and then experts are brought on both sides, and it still won't have anything to do with her treatment or, well, I'm not going to say anything because I don't want to get a lawsuit, but we all have concerns about the way that she refers to her son, and the way that we heard her son being yelled at that night is inexcusable. And she didn't act like that was a surprise or out of the norm. So that's unacceptable. If that's the way that he's being treated, the whole system that she's dealing with needs to be reevaluated. When she was talking about how her son is so sensitive and that he doesn't like it when people are mad or whatever, and he'll say right away, well, how would she know that? You know, I would, if my husband ever piped up like that, screaming about my children, that'd be the day that I was a single mother, because no, it wouldn't happen. It wouldn't happen twice, I'm going to tell you that. I mean, never. It was just terrible the way that they were yelling. Terrible. So that's that. That's what was new. Without further ado, then part 9 continues in where we were going, and we made our detours just to kind of quell some of the rumors and whatnot that are going on online. And so then we have here, we have the plaintiff's memorandum of law in support of plaintiff's motion for a temporary injunction. The introduction states, with the plaintiffs being as 7M Films, Robert Shin, Miranda Derrick, and James Derrick as the plaintiffs, versus Catherine Mansky Paulson, aka Katie Joy, and Without a Crystal Ball, LLC, the defendants are as followed. The defendants are, I already read that right there. I'm trying to figure out a way to prop this up. I was going to let you guys see it while I read it. I don't know. I should have thought of this. So anyway, we'll just kind of go here and I'll set it up better the next time. I do apologize. So the introduction is that plaintiffs respectfully request that the court grant their motion for a temporary injunction enjoining the defendants from posting any online content about the plaintiff 7M or its associate until this court adjudicates the merits of the plaintiff's lawsuit. Ooh, that's interesting. I wonder if I can do this. How long will this stay like that? Let's see what happens here. Oh, maybe. You can see I've got all the pages marked up and everything here. We'll see how long this lasts. In the alternative, if the court decides that a temporary injunction of all posting is inappropriate, plaintiffs respectfully request that the court requires that the defendants include with every post she makes about plaintiffs or their associates that in the picture and block of text relating to plaintiff 7M and its associate that she is currently engaged in litigation with plaintiff 7M for defamation. Oh, this is kind of like when the tobacco industry settled and said that on, sure, you can sell cigarettes, but on the side of each thing you have to say that these are cancer sticks, that they're going to give you cancer. That's what they're essentially saying. Because what they're saying here is, okay, if you're going to continue to let her post while this is going on about us, then there needs to be a disclaimer saying that she is currently engaged in litigation with plaintiff 7M for defamation. Well, that hasn't been done. So, It says, this case involves the defendant's persistent and malicious harassment of the plaintiffs through multiple social media platforms, including YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. The defendants have used these platforms to publish countless amounts of false and defamatory statements about the plaintiffs, including accusations of human trafficking, kidnapping, and waterboarding. Furthermore, the defendants have demonstrated a dedication to interfering with plaintiff 7M's contracts and prospective business relations. Despite the current litigation, defendants continue to post false and defamatory statements about the plaintiffs. A temporary injunction is appropriate because in its absence, the plaintiffs will suffer substantial and irreparable harm for which there is no adequate remedy at law. On the other hand, the defendants will suffer little harm from being enjoined from posting about the plaintiffs from the duration of this lawsuit, which is set for trial next year. Furthermore, the factors under Dahlberg, which Minnesota uses to analyze whether injunctive relief is appropriate, weigh heavily in favor of granting the plaintiff's temporary injunction. Now, the statement of facts. The parties. Plaintiff 7M Films Incorporated. 7M is a California corporation organized and operating pursuant to and accordance with the laws of the state of California. Plaintiff Robert Shin is the chief executive officer and sole owner of 7M. Mr. Shin is an individual resident of the state of California. Plaintiffs Miranda Derrick and James Derrick are independent contractors of 7M. Both Miranda Derrick and James Derrick are residents of California. Defendant Catherine Mansky Paulson, known as Katie Joy, is an adult resident of Wright County, Minnesota. Defendant Katie Joy is an internet personality and the sole owner of Defendant Without a Crystal Ball, LLC, WCB. So they don't have Paul. I'm just noticing this language here. So Paul doesn't own that either, because I wonder how that works out with the state of Minnesota being a state where, you own half if you're married, even if you're not working. Wonder how that works with this. Anyway. Defendant WCB is a Minnesota limited liability company organized and operating in accordance with the state laws of Minnesota. Defendant Katie Joy runs and uses various social media accounts on multiple platforms. These platforms include Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok. Affidavit of Amber Stavig in the Stavig Affidavit, Exhibit A. Defendant Katie Joy operates her social media accounts to publish sensational material to gaining viewership. That should be gain. Gain. It's hard enough to read this stuff without errors. I'll fix that right there. Defendant Katie Joy operates her social media accounts to publish sensational material to gain viewership. There you go. Much better with my little scribble there. There you are. Defendants use their following to monetize various social media accounts. Stavig Affidavit, Example A. Defendants use their following. Okay, so that's the way it goes. Defendants use their following to monetize various social media accounts. So, yeah, she makes a lot of money on this. About $400,000 a year and 1.2 in total value based on the internet. Can't remember what I read it, but I think Social Blade said it. But anyway, defendants hold themselves out as an established media personality and self-proclaimed internet troll. Stavig Affidavit Exhibit A. She really does take pride in saying she's an internet troll. It's so crazy. It's just crazy. I would not be proud of that. But anyway, defendant Katie Joy has a history of intentionally, maliciously, and or recklessly publishing false. Okay. Defendant Katie Joy has a history of intentionally, maliciously, and or recklessly publishing false and or misleading information about various people and entities. Stavik Affidavit, Exhibit A. Defendant Katie Joy has expressed an intense obsession with plaintiffs. Stavik Affidavit, Exhibit A. Defendant Katie Joy has expressed an intense... Okay, I just read that, sorry. I'm just laughing about the troll thing in my head still. Why did she put that on her freaking resume? I'm a troll, okay? I'm like totally a troll, and my nose and my chin are both trying to escape my face because they're trying to run from what comes out of my mouth. Okay, guys? Okay? This isn't funny. Sorry, I just got possessed by Katie Joy. Oh. Anywho. Defendant Katie Joy has demonstrated a commitment to interfering with 7M's contracts and other potential business opportunities. Stavik Affidavit, Exhibit I. The defendant's social media attacks against the plaintiff. Defendants have made an immense amount of social media posts regarding the plaintiffs, which contain false and defamatory statements about the plaintiffs and their associates. Stavik Affidavit, Exhibit A. A small amount of these statements are provided below. It says defendants' posts have included accusations of heinous behavior. Defendants have stated that plaintiff 7M engages in human trafficking. Stavik Affidavit, Exhibit A, page and paragraph 4 and 11. Defendants have stated that 7M dancers exhibit signs of being trafficked. Stavik Affidavit, Example A, paragraph 7. Defendants have stated that plaintiffs Robert Shin and 7M are predatory. Stavik Affidavit, Exhibit A, page 5. Defendants have stated that plaintiff 7M is a cult and that plaintiff Robert Shin abuses women. Stavik Affidavit, Exhibit A, page 6. Defendants have stated that plaintiff Miranda Derrick was kidnapped by plaintiff 7M. Stavik Affidavit, Exhibit A, page 9. Defendants have stated that plaintiff Robert Shin has waterboarded members of his church. Stavik Affidavit, Exhibit A, page 10. At least 2 dancers for 7M, who defendants have commented about recently, have responded to her social media post stating that the post was false. Stavik Affidavit, Exhibit C. In response to these dancers, defendant did not take down the posts and simply stated that they were her opinion. Stavik Affidavit, Exhibit C. Defendant Katie Joy's false and defamatory statements have damaged the plaintiff's reputation and standing in the community. The lawsuit. Plaintiffs served defendants with a summons and complaint on April 4th, 2022. Stavik Affidavit, Exhibit B. Plaintiffs' complaint included counts of defamation, defamation per se, tortious interference with a contract, commercial defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress, negligence per se under Minnesota Statute 609.765, deceptive trade practices, and intentional interference with a prospective advantage and injunctive relief. Commentary on this lawsuit and continued harassment of the plaintiffs. Defendants have made numerous statements about this lawsuit, including that they will continue to report on this lawsuit and plaintiffs. Stavig Affidavit, Exhibit D through F. After a brief pause, defendants have recently restarted their harassment of the plaintiffs. Stavig Affidavit, Exhibit G. Recent posts have even included plaintiff Robert Shin's daughter and son-in-law. They misspelled there. There. Put a little dot there. Despite ongoing litigation, defendants have stated that she is back to reporting on the 7M story and that she would not stop. Stavig Affidavit, Exhibit D. It has come to the attention of plaintiffs' counsel that defendants have recently been offered a Netflix deal and is being actively encouraged to post about 7M to promote the documentary. Oh, I didn't know that that was official. I thought that there was talk about it, and she was salty because she wasn't included in everything. Who encouraged her to promote it? That's interesting. And why would she promote it if she doesn't have personal gain? Does it back up what she's saying? Another sip of disappointment there, my lukewarm tea. During this recent wave of harassment, defendants posted a screenshot where she admitted to interfering with plaintiff 7M's contract with the Los Angeles Clippers. Stavig Affidavit, Exhibit I. The argument: the court should grant the plaintiff's motion for a temporary injunction. In the absence of injunctive relief, plaintiffs will suffer irreparable harm that for which there is no other adequate remedy of law. Furthermore, the Dahlberg factors weigh heavily in favor of the plaintiff's motion. The legal standard states that temporary injunctions are governed by Minnesota Rules of Civil Practice 6502. The rule states that a temporary injunction may be granted if, by affidavit, deposition testimony, or oral testimony in court, it appears that sufficient grounds exist. In order for a temporary injunction to be granted, the proponent must show that other legal remedies are inadequate and that the injunction is necessary to avoid irreparable harm. Medtronic Incorporated versus Advanced Bionics Corporation. In the Minnesota Court of Appeals, 2001. The irreparable harm must be established by verified affidavits or pleadings. Marshall County versus Ingolstadt in Minnesota, 1966. Temporary injunctions are meant to preserve the status quo pending adjudication on the merits. Metropolitan Sports Facilities versus Minnesota Twins Partnership, Minnesota Court of Appeals, 2002. Because the applicant is asking the courts to preserve the status quo until trial, the applicant must have a valid underlying cause of action to proceed to trial. Smith versus Spitzenberger in the Minnesota Court of Appeals in 1985. The plaintiff will suffer irreparable injury if relief is not granted, of which there is no adequate remedy of law. For a court to grant a temporary injunction, the first step is to determine whether the requisite threat is present. The threatened injury must be real, substantial, and irreparable. Independent School District Number 35, Marshall County versus Ingolstadt in Minnesota, 1966. Irreparable harm exists when a party has no adequate legal remedy, usually because its injuries could not be fully compensated through award of money damages. See Miller versus Foley in Minnesota, 1982. Minnesota courts have held that a loss of business and consumer goodwill can constitute irreparable harm. See Overholt, Crop Insurance Service Company Incorporated versus Bredson in Minnesota Court of Appeals in 1989. Discussing an employee who breached a non-compete and stole multiple of his employer's former customers. See also St. Jude Medical Incorporated versus Carter. Stating that risk to customer goodwill was a circumstance where courts can find irreparable harm. Creative Communication Consultants Incorporated versus Gaylord in the Minnesota Court of Appeals, 1987. Holding that there was irreparable harm to a business when there was a loss of clientele and threatened to disclose of confidential information. Furthermore, another Minnesota district court has held that social media posts containing statements which cause business losses can constitute irreparable harm and has granted injunctive relief barring such posts. See Ludgate versus Affordable Grantee and Cabinetry in the Minnesota District, Lexus 1236 at *6. See also Domain versus Stanton in the United States District Court, Lexus, Minnesota, December 10, 2005, granting injunctive relief that prohibited an individual from making posts on Facebook or GoFundMe.com. In this case, defendants have uttered numerous false and defamatory statements that has damaged 7M's business reputation and economic prospects. The defendants have made it clear that she intends to use her social media posts to put 7M out of business. Stavik Affidavit Exhibit D. Defendants have even blatantly boasted about interfering with plaintiff 7M's contract with the Los Angeles Clippers. Stavik Affidavit Exhibit I. Even when confronted for posting materials that are false, defendants have refused to take such posts down and has instead characterized her false statements as opinion when convenient. Stavik Affidavit Exhibit C. Overall, the defendants' persistent false and defamatory social media post has cost plaintiff 7M numerous contracts and has significantly damaged its reputation amongst their professional community. Defendants' social media posts have not only prejudiced the plaintiffs in business, but also in this litigation. Wow. She's so bold. I can't even imagine how much money she's cost. Or they're saying she cost. Allegedly. Sorry, I'm just sipping away at my disappointment in my mug with my lukewarm tea. My throat is sore. My allergies. Just a second. Okay. Let me see here. Defendants have made multiple false statements regarding this lawsuit, such as that plaintiffs are completely barred from obtaining discovery from defendant without a crystal ball when this is not the case. Stavig Affidavit Exhibits E through F. If defendant continues to make false statements pertaining to this lawsuit, she will restrict the plaintiff's access to a fair trial. If social media posts, especially those which contain misstatements about the court's rulings, intend to inappropriately influence the litigation, restrict the plaintiff's access to a fair trial, and equitable relief is appropriate. That doesn't make sense. I need to reread it. If social media posts, especially those which contain misstatements about the court's rulings, intended to inappropriately influence the litigation, restrict the plaintiff's access to a fair trial, equitable relief is appropriate. See Dahane, 2015, United States District, Lexus at 2. Okay. So what they're saying is that if she's trying to do this to influence the litigation and stop him from getting a fair trial, then this should be over and equitable relief is appropriate. I mean, when you think of it that way, it's really thought-provoking, because what she's doing on social media is affecting how many different people. I mean, if she continues this, she's having the advantage of tainting the jury pool. But it's Minnesota and no one talks to each other, so it's fine. Minnesota say nothing about anything. She's on the internet, and the internet isn't going to have the jurors. So it'll be easy for them to find a jury trial, jurors for a jury trial, should it make it to trial, because people have never heard of Katie Joy. But anyway. Overall, defendant Katie Joy's continuous posting of false and defamatory material has damaged the plaintiff 7M, both in its business and in this litigation. It is impossible to quantify the damage that will continue to occur to plaintiff 7M's finances and reputation and goodwill in the talent community, and what it would cost to repair the damage caused by the defendants if the temporary injunction is not granted. Therefore, in the absence of the temporary injunction, the plaintiffs will suffer irreparable harm for which there is no adequate remedy of law. All of the Dahlberg factors under Minnesota law are satisfied. Once a proponent for a temporary injunction has showed that there is irreparable harm, the next issue is to conduct a Dahlberg analysis. A Dahlberg analysis applies to multiple factors to determine if injunctive relief is important, including, number 1, the relationship between the parties. Number 2, the harm suffered to the plaintiff if his request is denied, compared to the harm suffered by the defendant if the restraining order is granted. Number 3, the likelihood of success on the merits. And number 4, public policy. And number 5, the administrative burdens of enforcing the order. See Dahlberg Brothers Incorporated versus Ford Motor Company in Minnesota 1965. This analysis does not apply to temporary injunctions. MGM Liquor Warehouse International Incorporated versus Forceland in the Minnesota Court of Appeals in 1985. Ekman versus Brutger in Minnesota 1979. Upon an analysis of the facts of this case, the majority of the Dahlberg factors clearly weigh in favor of granting the temporary injunction. The relationship between the parties supports injunctive relief. The first factor involves the nature and background of the relationship between the parties pre-existing the dispute giving rise to the request for relief. Dahlberg. Emphasis added. This factor is concerned with the maintaining the status quo pending a decision on the merits. Metro Sports Facilities Communication versus Minnesota Twins Partnership in the Minnesota Court of Appeals in 2002. Citing Pickering versus Pasco Marketing Incorporated, Minnesota 1975. Before this dispute, the parties had no relationship. Defendants had no professional or personal affiliation with plaintiffs until she began her defamation campaign against them. Therefore, this factor favors plaintiffs as the status quo supports no contact or commentary between the parties. It is crazy because she just picks something to just go for and just goes for it. Like a freaking vulture troll bully from hell. Allegedly. The balancing of harm favors the plaintiffs. The second factor involves balancing the harm to the plaintiffs is if the temporary injunction is not granted against the harm to the defendants if the court provides injunctive relief. See Dahlberg. In the Minnesota Court of Appeals has held that this is the most important factor in determining whether a temporary injunction should be issued. Eden versus Jostens in the Minnesota Court of Appeals in 1984. For this case, the potential harm to the plaintiff 7M gravely outweighs the harm to the defendants. As analyzed above, plaintiff 7M would suffer irreparable harm if the defendant continues their false and defamatory social media campaign. The severity of the defendants' actions, such as claims of human trafficking, waterboarding, and operating a cult, can cause irreparable harm to the plaintiff 7M's business and consumer goodwill, especially when such allegations are distributed on online platforms to hundreds of thousands of viewers. See Sajati versus Nygaard in 2021, Minnesota District, Lexus 1218 at 38 through 39. Holding that an individual would suffer irreparable harm when the opponent was using online platforms to accuse the proponent of sexual assault, pedophilia, and Satanism. Surprised she hasn't gone there yet, but the day is young. There goes my cucumber water. And now we're to the Gatorade stage. All right. Plaintiff 7M is at risk of losing considerable business and consumer goodwill to an extent that is impossible to quantify. Therefore, Plaintiff 7M will suffer irreparable harm if the temporary injunction is not granted. On the other hand, the harm to the defendants would be minimal at most. To bar a temporary injunction, the opponent is not held to an irreparable harm standard, but still must show substantial harm. See Yeager versus Thompson in the Minnesota Court of Appeals in 1984, citing Vernon V. Rockler and Company versus Minneapolis Shareholders Company in Minnesota 1977. Restraining one from coercively targeting one's business or publishing statements on the internet regarding the plaintiffs does not pose a substantial risk of harm. See Ludgate, 2021. Minnesota, Lexus 1236 at 9. Upholding a temporary restraining order prohibiting a party from posting or broadcasting statements about the order's proponents. For this temporary injunction, plaintiffs simply ask that the court enjoin the defendants from posting materials about the plaintiffs or their associates until this matter is adjudicated on the merits. There is no evidence that defendants will suffer any harm as a result of the proposed temporary injunction. See Yeager at 75. Reasoning that the opponents to a temporary injunction would suffer substantial harm when they would have been deprived of their sole source of livelihood. Requiring the defendants to suspend her defamatory statements during this case is greatly outweighed by the irreparable harm that will be suffered by the plaintiffs. The plaintiff can demonstrate a likelihood of success on the merits. Okay. The next Dahlberg factors requires that the court look at the likelihood that one party or the other will prevail on the merits. Dahlberg at 311. A court errs in granting temporary injunctive relief if a proponent cannot show any likelihood of prevailing on the merits. Haley versus Forcell, citing Metro Sports Facilities in Minnesota, the Twins partnership. However, if a plaintiff makes even a doubtful showing as to the likelihood of prevailing on the merits, a district court may consider issuing a temporary injunction. Reasoning that the presence of some obstacles to a plaintiff's case is not enough to invalidate a district court's granting of a temporary injunction. In this case, plaintiffs have more than a doubtful chance of prevailing on the merits. Plaintiffs have brought 9 counts against the defendants, including defamation, defamation per se, tortious interference of contract, commercial defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress, deceptive trade practices, and intentional interference with prospective advantage. If plaintiffs can show they have a likelihood of prevailing on the merits in merely one of these counts, then this factor weighs in favor of granting the temporary injunction. A claim for defamation requires the plaintiff to prove 3 elements. Number 1 is that the defamatory statement is communicated to someone other than the plaintiff. Number 2, that the statement is false. And number 3, that the statement tends to harm the plaintiff's reputation and lower the plaintiff in the estimation of the community. If a plaintiff is a public figure, then there must also be a showing of actual malice, which means that they knew the statements to be false or uttered in reckless disregard of its falsity. Rose versus Koch in 427 Minnesota, 1967. In this matter, the defendants have published countless posts regarding the plaintiff 7M and its associates on her various social media platforms, which potentially have hundreds of thousands of followers. The defendants' posts, which include but are not limited to outrageous accusations of human trafficking, waterboarding, and cult-like behavior, are false. Defendants' posts have also damaged 7M reputation and opinion in the talent community. Defendants have personally boasted about disparaging 7M's reputation and has disclosed that she played an active role in destroying any potential business relationship with the Los Angeles Clippers. Stavig, Affidavit, Exhibit I. Furthermore, the defendants have failed to substantiate her claims against the plaintiff 7M. Okay, is this repetitive? I'm almost looking back to see if I'm repeating the same freaking page. I'm going to not read some of the case references to get the point across on some of it, because I think that sometimes I need to do that. Furthermore, defendants have failed to substantiate her claims against the plaintiff 7M. To this date, defendants have failed to provide any corroborating evidence to prove her accusations against 7M are true. When confronted with her falsity, the defendant simply backtracked and relabeled her statements of facts as opinions. Stabbing Affidavit, Exhibit C. Defendants had knowledge of the falsity of at least some of her statements, and at a minimum has displayed a reckless disregard for such falsity. Overall, the plaintiffs do have a likelihood of success on the merits for their defamation claim. Therefore, this factor weighs in favor of granting the motion for a temporary injunction. Public policy supports the plaintiff's motion. The fourth factor is whether or not public policy supports the motion, Dahlberg. Society has a pervasive and strong interest in preventing and redressing attacks upon reputation. Although the temporary injunction arguably restricts defendants' freedom of speech, such freedom is not absolute. Individuals do not have the right to speak or publish without responsibility, whatever one may choose, or an unrestricted and unbridled license that gives immunity for every possible use of language and prevents the punishment of those who abuse this freedom. Bam. Okay? This right here should be labeled, maybe that should be a condition of the court, is that they have that tattooed on Katie Joy's forearm, just like right here, so she can look at it. Because this is saying that, yeah, we have freedom of speech, but there's also slander and libel and things that you do not say. You do not utter the word FIRE in a movie theater and say, freedom of speech is my opinion. You know what I mean? This is important. And that's what's going to be the crux of if this goes to a trial, because this says right in here, again, individuals do not have the right to speak or publish without responsibility, whatever one may choose. And that is what she does not frickin' get. When she acts like this is just something that happens to reporters and bloggers and everything, it is not. It is not something that just happens in a regular occurrence of a career. It is not. There's also a difference between right and wrong. Ugh. I mean, if she's right about any of this, and because of her character and past, this behavior goes unchecked, it's bad. But if she's right about any of this, it's really scary. But I don't think that 7M would fight like this if there was any truth to it. It's just, I don't know how she's, I don't get this chick. I don't get her. I don't know why she does it. Those are strong accusations. Very strong accusations. Waterboarding. Ugh. Ugh. Anywho. See Gitlu versus New York, 652 through 666, the number of the beast right there. And I just mentioned the beast. Allegedly. In other words, individuals do not have the right to say, or in this case, post, whatever they like at the expense of others. Under these principles, a Minnesota district court has held that the public policy has favored enjoining a litigant from making online content about the opposing party. Okay, I'm going to want to remember this. I'm going to fold this piece of paper because that's important. This is really, really important. In this case, public policy favors enjoining defendants' attacks against the plaintiff's reputation and business prospects. Defendants have used her platform to render both heinous and baseless allegations that serve no interest to the public. Furthermore, it would not be an improper restriction on the defendant's First Amendment rights if she is restrained from publishing false and defamatory statements regarding the plaintiffs. Defendants should not be allowed to use her social media platforms to subject the plaintiffs to immeasurable harm while we await final adjudication on the matter. Therefore, the public policy factor weighs in favor of granting the temporary injunction. The administrative burden on the court supports the plaintiff's motion. The final factor involves looking at the burden on courts in the supervision and enforcement of injunctive relief. The plaintiff's requested temporary injunction would not require any performance or detailed surveillance by the court. The order would simply require monitoring the defendants' social media platforms, which could be conducted by the parties in this action. Furthermore, the temporary injunction would only last until the adjudication of this action, minimizing any impact on the court and parties. Therefore, granting the plaintiff's motion for a temporary injunction would pose little to no administrative burden on this court. The conclusion. Overall, if the plaintiff's motion for temporary injunction is not granted, Plaintiff 7M will suffer irreparable harm for which there is no adequate remedy at law. Furthermore, 4 out of the 5 Dahlberg factors weigh in favor of granting injunctive relief, while the remaining factor is neutral. Therefore, the totality of the Dahlberg factors weigh in favor of granting the proposed temporary injunction enjoining defendants from creating any social media posts about Plaintiff 7M or its associates. In the alternative, if the court does not grant the temporary injunction, plaintiffs respectfully request that the court mandate that the defendants include a disclaimer that she is currently being sued for defamation by Plaintiff 7M with any picture or block of text that she posts regarding 7M or its associates. By Amber J. Stavig, attorney for the plaintiffs. Now look at this. And one might think, August 26th, whoa, this is a freaking year ago. Okay, this was a year ago that this was introduced. She has been playing with fire for a whole nother year. This was a year ago that this was written. Has she learned anything? Has she stopped? I don't think so. But that is it for this episode of With My LED Crystal Ball, the plaintiff's memorandum of law in support of plaintiff's motion for a temporary injunction. We learned a lot about Dahlberg. I feel that this was repetitive, but sometimes law is. Thank you for listening. I'll go back to huffing crayons, and please subscribe if you haven't yet. Welcome to my community, and if you've been here for a while or since day one, thank you so much for being here. I adore all of you. If you'd like to buy me some coffee, please cash at me at Tabitha Jane 13. You'll see my little boo-boo cat in the icon. All of the pumpkin spice selections are out, and your girl here, she loves her coffee. I went to Dunkin' Donuts today and got the pumpkin spice signature latte. I did it with almond milk because I'm being a good person, and it was so freaking good. So buy me coffee. It's good for you to do so. Please like and subscribe, and thank you for listening. I really appreciate it. And I'll get back to huffing my crayons here. I will see you in the next episode. Thank you. Bye-bye.